Welcome to the Fast Mode podcast series. I'm Tara Neil, and with me today is Adam Sandman, founder and CEO of Inflectra. Founded in 2006, Inflectra is a market leader in software test management, test automation, application lifecycle management, and enterprise portfolio management. Headquartered in the USA and with offices in over 10 countries, Inflectra makes turnkey solutions that address many challenges in software testing and QA, test automation, and product lifecycle management. Adam has been in the IT industry for the past 25 years in areas such as architecture, agile development, testing, and product management. At Inflectra, Adam has been responsible for researching the tools, technologies, and processes in the software testing and quality assurance space. Adam joins us as part of our exclusive editorial segment on generative AI for network management. Welcome, Adam. Great to have you on today's episode.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure to be here today.
Okay, great. Okay, to start, in the software development lifecycle, where do you believe Gen AI can bring the most value, particularly in areas like testing and validation?
Oh, that's a great question because, as you can imagine, Gen AI has already made a big impact in the software development lifecycle, but everyone has been focusing on code development, things like Copilot and Amazon Q and other similar tools. Everyone's been focusing on how do we make developers more productive by churning out more code. The problem we're seeing is, as we talk to many of our customers, that you're generating 300 to 400% more code per developer, but the quality is not potentially as high. There's more errors being introduced. And if you remember 2 years ago, before AI, testing and quality and validation was typically the bottleneck anyway. And now with developers being even more efficient, effectively, and more productive, testers are struggling to keep up. So therefore, AI needs to be in place to help the testers and the people doing validation and deployment, all the non-coding tasks need to now be given that same level of productivity to be able to not be the bottleneck. Because if you look at any process, whether that's software or manufacturing, you always look at the bottlenecks. It's like the typical Kanban process. Where are the bottlenecks? And if you speed up one stage but don't change anything else, you actually can often make the entire process less productive. So the key is to have an effective process from beginning to end, from idea to code to deployment to testing, design, code review, all the steps. We have to have AI across all those steps, or you won't see any productivity gains. All you're going to see is probably reduction in productivity and reduction in quality, which is really the worst case. So what we're going to see increasingly in the coming year is going to be using AI to help do things like testing, writing test cases, doing the autonomous testing, maybe using some of the computer use models to actually do exploratory testing, even documentation, writing scenarios, a lot of the management and testing tasks that humans take a long time to do that slow down the process, scrum reviews, analytics, forecasting. There's lots of tasks that are not coding. In fact, they estimate that 95% of most software development teams' work is not done writing code, it's doing other things. So if you speed up the 5%, which is what we've done last year, then you've not made things much better. But if you can speed up all the other 95% of work they do each day, then now you're going to have a much more productive and happier team and higher quality, which is really the goal. We want higher quality and higher speed, not just higher speed. I mean, we actually work in a lot of different sectors, everything from finance and banking and insurance to life sciences and manufacturing, automotive and aerospace. I think for us, the common theme across all the sectors is a very high requirement for quality. We work for customers that work, in aerospace. You have to have a plane that stays airborne, a car that mustn't crash. It's a real-time system. Financial trading systems that can't be down for more than a second, or you're looking at billions of dollars of fine. So in those industries, quality really matters. And so what they're doing is making sure that they have guardrails so that as you use Gen AI to develop more software, you need to make sure that you're monitoring the AI and making sure that the quality doesn't suffer. And they're looking at using AI to how to actually improve quality. So things like using AI to help review tests, review scenarios. A lot of times, we can't test everything. There's never enough time. Well, some of the newest AI models can do some agentic workflows where they can actually take a relatively high-level instruction and turn it automatically into test cases, into test scripts. So instead of a human writing, say, Selenium scripts or other automated scripts by hand, which is kind of like old school thinking. It's like craftsmanship. We've got more like a factory where you can tell the computer, I want you to test this application. It's a complex Salesforce implementation or a core banking application. I want you to test 100 different use cases. Here's the general test. Here's the data. Go figure it out rather than giving it prescriptive steps. Increasingly, AI can do a lot of that. I know people are looking at using it for RPA and other process automation, but the flip side is that's also very valuable for test automation. So the latest models from Anthropic and OpenAI can start to do some of the things that we thought of as previously as human testing tasks. So very open-ended scenarios where you're not giving the computer, click on this button, click on this link. Instead you say, create a purchase order. That's a different kind of test. Traditionally, we've said that's not something that's automated. That's something that a human does. To automate it, you have to break it down into 100 steps. It takes maybe 2 days. Well, the latest AI can take that high level idea and do it without that decomposition. So testing is getting a lot more efficient. And in theory, so if all we follow these ideas, we should be able to reduce the number of bugs get into production, increase quality, and increase speed, and thus be able to reduce the quality gap that we're seeing with the introduction of AI solely in the development side of things. And in these industries, they have to do that. They can't slow down. They have to have high quality. They don't have any other choice. Life sciences, if you have an IT system that fails, someone might be prescribed the wrong drug in a hospital. The cost of failure is so high, they cannot afford to have anything going wrong. So we need to have this human AI team working together to reduce the bugs, reduce the issues, and really make sure we have the highest quality software at the highest productivity, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. So talking about human teams, right? There must have been like a very steep learning curve. And do you guys like consistently improve the prompts, or have you come a long way and you now have very refined prompts that people can just take and go? They can just run with it.
That's a great question. So when we first started writing the functionality for our AI functionality in our platform, we initially started, the first version had the humans, well, the humans, the people using the software write the prompts or edit the prompts. And we found the problem was it was very inconsistent. And business users don't have the time to learn all this. So what we've done is we actually wrote some initial prompts and we make them very specific. And we also make the output very specific so that the machine can read, the application can read the data. So it can be quite interesting. You have to think a little bit out of the box. So we'll say something like in our prompt, you are a business analyst or you are a software tester. You speak only JSON. Only write back the information in this specific format. And then we build some other logic into the prompt. So then the business user can use the application and just say, complete this task. And the AI does it for them. So they're not really interacting with the prompts anymore. We're taking the whole prompt engineering away from the end user and just building that into the application so that the application user doesn't have to understand, I don't know, I don't need AI. What am I doing? They don't have to worry. They just say, I've got a new user story, a new requirement, build my test plan, define my tasks. As a business user, that's what you're thinking about is complete these actions for me. These are the workflows I want to complete. You're not thinking about prompt engineering. So we really need to refine that. So what we did is we took the initial prompts, released them, got feedback, iterated on them. And as we work with customers, we're able to make the prompts more reliable, cover more use cases. And as we feed in more customers' data and try these things out, we find which prompts work, which prompts don't work. We also find that some prompts don't work well with different models because we give users the choice. Do you want to use a very expensive high-end model that may be important for a high-end, graphical engineering multimodal task, but is expensive for a simple text processing task? So by having different models like Haiku or Sonnet or OpenAI, Mini versus 4.0, you can have different use cases, but the problem we find is that the prompts don't work the same. So we've had to actually do quite a bit of work to engineer the different prompts for the different model. So when the user chooses, I want a effectively cheap and fast set of AI, we'll use one set of prompts. If a user says, I'm willing to pay a bit more time, a bit more processing power, I want a more sophisticated set of results, we'll use a slightly different set of prompts. So you can't just take a prompt and apply it blindly to a model. You do have to make sure that you've tuned it for the model that you're using. And those models are evolving by the manufacturer. So obviously it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg that you have to keep updating them. But I agree with you. You do need to spend a lot of time with that. I think a lot of applications have been making the users become the programmers by saying, here's a chatbot, write in the chatbot what you want. Well, now you're asking the user to effectively become a pseudo programmer by writing these complex prompts. So we're trying to abstract that away and have our application know what the user is trying to accomplish, what the tasks are, what the data is, and have them use the prompts that we've written. Obviously, they can customize them, but we don't want users becoming prompt engineers just to use the software. That seems like that's a bad idea.
Wow, excellent. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize that, although you have Gen AI and you have that chatbot helping you, you have that window where you can type in, but getting the perfect prompt may take a long time. So it's not as easy as, because it's difficult to translate what's in your mind so that the machine understands exactly. It can't read your mind, right? So I guess there's a lot of value, by making sure that well-developed prompts are in place, and then the end user basically has access to this without having to, like what you rightly pointed out, spending a lot of time prompt engineering.
Right, and a lot of applications are basically, wrappers around these engines. So, for example, there's tools that can help you write blogs, and that tool is basically a user interface around OpenAI or Anthropic, but they've written all the prompts for you. So instead of you having to write the perfect prompt, you can take a blog writing tool and drop your text in and say, translate this into, a technical manual, translate this into a social media post. Well, they've taken that command and turned it into a series of complex prompts, so you don't have to. So, and people keep saying, well, these are just wrappers around the AI models. Why should I pay for this? I can pay $10 a month for OpenAI, or I can pay $20 for this, blog writing tool. Well, that's like anything. Do you want to work with a low-level operating system, or do you want to work with a high-level programming language? It's the exact same trade-off. I can pay $10 more a month and get a tool that's written the prompts for me and is improving them with feedback. Or I can become a prompt engineer. It just depends how much time you have and how valuable your time is. So a lot of these applications that we're seeing are effectively user interface abstractions over these models, but there's still a lot of value in that. It's not valueless.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. So I think we've talked about the topic in general. Now let's just zoom into Inflectra. So how do you see Gen AI shaping your strategies and also your solutions?
Well, it's a big part of our strategy for 2025. I mean, last year we released AI, Gen AI in both our main product suites. We have an application lifecycle management solution, and we use AI extensively throughout that to help you take a requirement and turn it into plans, test cases, tasks. Basically, takes the job of a project manager, scrum master, business analyst, and test manager, test analyst, and helps them become more efficient. The second tool is our test automation tool, and that takes the output from the other tool and turns it into automated scripts that you can run. So that's kind of the first versions of AI we released. That was last year. And then this year, we're partnering with AWS, Amazon Web Service, and their AI platform to really innovate even more. And some of the things we'll be doing this year will be taking those core features and then allowing users to use their own data in the system to try and refine the results and look for insights. So as well as just automating tasks, which is what we did last year, and which is what a lot of people are doing, we want to go one step further and say, well, we've got all this great data from the customer. We've got this requirements, test cases, code, pull requests, risks, all the entire life cycle of a software project is in our system. All these relationships are in here. Can we feed some of that data into the prompt using RAG and vector databases? So basically more advanced AI features. And can we do that to give the customers more insight? So as well as doing tasks which they've asked us to do, can the system tell them what they haven't even thought of? So I think think of it this way. Last year, we're taking the task they say, take a requirement and build out my project plan. That's like last year. This year is do that, of course, but also when you've done that, what are all the risks I haven't thought of? This product's going to go live in 6 months. This is our development team. This is the code we have. This is the application we're deploying. These are the customizations we've agreed. Where are we going to fail? What risks do we have? What should we be focusing on? How likely are we to meet the target? So imagine an AI could tell you some of that. That would be really powerful. So before you start your project, maybe you adjust your resourcing. Maybe you hire someone, you change the people, change the time frame, talk to the client. Too often projects fail because requirements weren't understood, tests weren't done, risks weren't understood. You look at every software project that's failed out there or systems engineering project, these are the factors that are most common. And AI has the ability to find that hidden gem, that one risk that's buried deep in your project plan or deep in your code base that's going to bite you in 4 months. AI can often find that. And we want AI to be insightful, not just essentially automic. It doesn't just automate tasks, it should find insights. And so our plan is to use, and it's called Project Insight, which we're working with AWS to develop, is allowing us to figure out these things so that people can become smarter and use AI to really improve the quality of what they're doing and have insight into what they're doing, as well as obviously improving the throughput of product work, which is what they're doing today.
Wow, excellent. I was just thinking, like, among the verticals that you guys are focusing on, is network management one of them, where you work with telcos, CSPs and the likes?
Yeah, we do have several large telcos as clients. I know several US and Philippine clients in particular we're working with right now, as well as several large European companies. And they do a lot of network testing using a lot of both hardware and software tools to monitor network throughput, do signal processing, and they're using our software to do the testing, plan the requirements. And what they're going to see is, well, as part of that test data, test management, and test automation, where can I use AI to find those risks that I haven't anticipated? Where can I find issues that maybe a human tester has missed? So, you write a test to test the particular throughput of a network connection, or these are the protocols we're testing. Here's our sample packets. You put that all in the test. It all seems to work fine. But maybe there's a very subtle response on the test that's not matching exactly, and a human might miss that, or an automated test might mark it as a blind failure. So AI has the ability to apply almost a gradation of scale around something. It looks at something creatively. GenAI has that sort of slightly creative aspect, whereas automated testing is very black and white. Either it 100% met the test or it didn't, and humans are much more subjective. So when you've got large amounts of data, which you see usually in network monitoring and network traffic, humans have the ability to find that hidden gem in the data stream. Machines don't. Typically, they tend to find only things they've been programmed to find. Gen AI has that ability to take these, with especially these large language models, it takes abstract knowledge outside of the initial domain, applies it into that sphere, and so it's able to find something that you may not have missed. For example, could there be I hate to say this, could there be malware in a network system that's sending a very small network traffic embedded or encoded within the mainstream so that it's not detected, which is this has happened in real life. Most anti-malware systems can't see that. It's too insignificant. The volume is not high. It's not sending errant traffic. It's not causing rogue actions to happen. It's latent. It's a latent sleeping piece of malware. Gen AI is particularly good at these kinds of tasks because it's able to find these signals that may be anomalous, but not in a deterministic way, because Gen AI isn't deterministic. It's so because it's able to look for things that it wasn't programmed for, effectively zero-day tasks, it's able therefore to find more effectively zero-day vulnerabilities, things that effectively are latent and buried. So I do think in the network management space, there's a lot of scope for AI to really even the odds. Now, obviously, bad actors are using AI to do these exact same things. For example, there's malware right now that, as you probably know, that recodes itself using Gen AI. This is mad. So traditionally, you click on a link, you download some malware, and it's an application that runs. Okay, so the antivirus can look for the signature, look for the code, look for the behavior, and try and find it. But now they've got code that when it downloads, it goes out to an AI model and says, rewrite my code to do this task. So that every instance of that AI, of that malware in every single system is different. So now that whereas before you might be using malware to say there's 100 instances of some piece of software sending a signal, that's suspicious. You've now got 100 different pieces of software because they've been written by AI separately, sending slightly different signals back to some control unit. How are you going to spot that? So humans can't, machines can't. Therefore, Gen AI is probably our last defense against this kind of self-learning, self-writing malware, which is out there. And that's why I feel like it's this battle between the offensive and defensive world. And we need to use AI in the defensive posture, because if we don't, we're going to be overwhelmed by, unfortunately, antivirus writers, malware writers who are using AI already.
Wow. Well, interesting. Now you talked about like traffic irregularities, right? And then
Hmm.
that would basically alert the system administrators of any
Correct,
impending
correct.
attacks and stuff like that. And
Right,
then you go in and see whether that's really positive or it's just negative. Sometimes it
right,
may alert you on things that are not really valid. So
right.
over time, we're going to retrain the model until it becomes super smart, like it's telling you the right things the way you want it. Is there
Well,
a
that's the
maturity?
theory.
Is
That's the
there a
hope.
maturity?
Well, if the attacks were static, that's definitely the case. What's happening, of course, is as you're learning and becoming better at identifying false positives from actual positives, unfortunately, the malware is getting smarter and being more sneaky and being able to disguise itself. So I think it's an arms race a little bit, but I agree. Ideally, the AI is self-training, and so it's able to reduce false positives, so you don't end up with thousands of false positives. At which point, no one's going to trust what it says, and thus it overwhelms the defenses. Um, I mean, one of the classic examples of this in process engineering was many years ago. Ironically, AI is going to. It's interesting. AI is going to require more power. More power is going to require nuclear power in some countries, and in the U.S. right now, they're talking about reopening 3 Mile Island to power Microsoft's new AI data center. Well, the irony is, it was actually 3 Mile Island where there was a design where when all these things went wrong, 1,000 alarms were all going at once, and no one working in the control center knew what was the actual cause of the problem, because there was one failure and 999 symptoms of that one failure, and they had no idea what was the problem, so they couldn't fix it. The same thing with malware and cybersecurity. If you've got 1,000 alarms all showing because there's lots of different aspects being monitored and they all suddenly start to go red, you can't make sense of that. So AI needs to be smart in helping humans narrow down what is the actual root cause of something, not just the 999 symptoms that were triggered by that one other action. But it's a very hard problem to solve when the malware is self-learning and is also effectively intelligent.
Wow, okay. So I think, we have the next question that I wanted to ask about challenges, but you have already explained some. So maybe, yeah, no, which is great. So maybe, we can zoom into the other challenges that you guys face, especially in integrating Gen AI into software testing and lifecycle management, and especially concerning, things like data security, privacy and stuff.
Right, it's a big problem. So in many, as I mentioned, our clients fall into those same regulated, highly conservative industries: life sciences, financial services, manufacturing, aerospace, and automotive. You couldn't probably choose an energy. You couldn't choose any customers that are probably more conservative. So when we talk to them about using Gen AI solutions in our product, I think a year and a half, 18 months ago, they were very skeptical. They were of the opinion that this is a great piece of technology. We like the fact you're innovating, but it's not for us. Not for us. No, thank you. And then what happens is their CIO starts to read about AI and they start to think, oh, this is a good idea, maybe a good idea. And then, but also they start to realize, well, my competitors are starting to use these technologies and are going to be able to innovate faster. So they go from the question of, we don't want to use AI, no thank you, to we have to use AI. How do we do it responsibly and safely? So it becomes a very different question, which is, we want to use your product. What ways can we make it safe? And that's where we start to talk to them about, well, first of all, the in general, when you use a large language model, the training and the inference are different. So you train on data, and then when you send the prompts in, the model doesn't actually, generally speaking, remember the prompt. It's inferring, but it doesn't get added to the model. So it's actually safe to ask questions and use techniques called RAG, where you send things into the model as part of your prompt. It's okay. Retrieval augmentation generation, because it's safe. That data isn't becoming part of the model. People don't realize that. They think it is being used. And part of that confusion, I think, is when you use things like ChatGPT, it seems to remember what you're doing, but people don't realize that that's actually part of the ChatGPT application. The actual model behind the scenes doesn't remember what you're asking. It's just the application that sits on top of it is. So a lot of it's educating our clients about, well, we're going to use this model and we can host it in our account, or you can host it in your account. So I'll mention that in a minute about that's another aspect. But when we do that, we're going to first monitor all the data coming in and out so you can view it and audit it. That's really important too. But also, we're not going to be training the model on the things that you're asking. So if you put some of your confidential data in our system and we send that into the model to help get better answers, we're not training the model on your data, we're just inferring answers using the data. And it's a very big difference, but that subtlety is not understood well by a lot of people. And once you explain that, that immediately gives them a level of comfort. Oh, you're not training on my data? Okay, that's good. The next thing is, though, but the data is still passing into this model, and so is other customers. If how do I guarantee that someone else hasn't put malware in this model or the system? So one thing we can do is we can actually say, well, you can host your own large language model. So you can take Anthropic or Llama or even OpenAI. You host it in your own Amazon account, Azure account. And then you can protect that and you control it. You have controls over it. You can set up rules and monitoring, and we'll connect to it through our application to your account. Well, now they feel much more comfortable because their systems, their administrators and CISOs and IT security can look at the model and say, oh, I can see all the traffic going between your application and the model. We have full control. So that's another option. So first of all, education is good, so they know what a model contains, what it doesn't contain. And then the second thing is giving them the ability to host some of those models themselves rather than us hosting it as a vendor gives them a bit more comfort. Of course, you're still going to have good foundations like access control, security, making sure that your core application and all the networking and everything that gets from your application into the model is safe. Those are all really important. And if you are going to start using customer data to do fine tuning and training the model, that's another level of detail. If you are doing that, then you need additional safeguards because now you are building a model on the customer's data. And particularly in countries like in Europe where there's GDPR, one issue might arise where if you are training it on your data, on your customer data or your internal data, and someone says, I have a data request, I want to remove myself, I want the right to be forgotten. That's now hard because how do you do that? Because I don't think you can, because an AI isn't like a relational database where you can go in and say, find the foreign key and pull this data out. It's trained on it in a way that we can't actually fully comprehend. It's not trained in a simple linear way that I can literally just strip it out. The whole model is compromised. So that's the biggest question, I think, is if you put data into a large language model for training, again, not for inference, but for training, that data really can't be extracted. Another example is a lot of book manufacturers and newspapers in the United States are suing OpenAI over their use of using the New York Times and other publications as training data without consent. If they win the case, in theory, GPT-4 will have to be withdrawn because OpenAI, I don't think, can easily extract just the New York Times data and leave in everything else. They have to remove everything. So that's one of the big risks from a privacy standpoint is you cannot put PII or PHI into an LLM, or if you do, there's the risk you will have to abandon the entire model. You can't just simply extract single elements like you can with a regular database or a non-AI system. So I think those are some of the challenges you need to be aware of. But just using AI to do prompts, just using AI to do inference is much safer and doesn't run you into those same issues. A lot of that is, again, just general security encryption and all the good standards and best practices together with education around what you're doing, where the data is, where it resides, how long it persists, and what it persists in. Those, I think, are some of the key educations that a company should do with its customers and its, CISOs and IT members, so they feel comfortable. And every one of our customers right now in these industries is asking us these exact same questions. We fill out this long questionnaire. Where's the data coming from? How long does it go? Is it being used for training? There's a series of questions. So some companies are getting quite sophisticated and asking the right questions. That doesn't mean that all customers are, all users are. So I think you have to be expected to, I think, educate your customers a little bit so they do have that comfort level.
I guess because Gen AI has become indispensable, so the best way is to just work out your best practices and go along with it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's indispensable because everyone else is doing it. It's like you talk to the CIO of a bank, and he'll be like, "Well, I want to use it for claim processing and fraud detection because my competitors are."
Yeah.
And my board of directors is asking me, what is my strategy? If I don't have one, then I'm probably not going to be in this job next year. So unfortunately, there's a lot of top-down pressure to have an answer to these things.
That's how it's indispensable now.
Right, right, right.
Okay.
Is it indispensable? I don't know, but it's become indispensable for
It
sure.
is. All right. Okay. Well, sounds exciting. Okay, great. I think, yeah, we have come to the end of the session and learned quite a lot about Gen AI and also what Inflectra is doing and all the challenges and complexities behind it and how we are going to tackle this in years to come. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Adam, for joining us.
Thank you, Tara. It's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate being on the podcast today. And good luck, everyone, with your AI strategies and plans.
Yes. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for listening. And if you guys want to learn more, visit www.inflectra.com and follow us for more updates and insights as we uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you guys in our next session. Bye bye.